Hold on. Don't let go. The girl's voice cracked through the roaring wind as icy waves clawed at the shoreline. The waves that night didn't sound like water, they sounded like something alive, something furious. Lightning tore through the California sky, turning the ocean into a sheet of silver. The wind howled hard enough to bend streetlights, and the air smelled like salt and fear. Somewhere down the beach, a man was shouting, a deep, desperate voice calling for help that was being swallowed by the storm. The man was clinging to a jagged rock, one arm wrapped around a small boy who looked no older than 10. The boy's tiny hands were bleeding, his face streaked with seawater and tears. Every time a wave slammed against them, the man's grip loosened. They were seconds away from being dragged back into the black water. Then, through the storm, a small figure came running, barefoot, thin, wrapped in a soaked hoodie that looked like it hadn't been washed in weeks. Her clothes clung to her like a second skin, and her breaths came out in sharp, ragged gasps. She didn't hesitate. She dropped her backpack, kicked off her jeans, and dove straight into the freezing waves. The cold hit her like knives. Salt burned her eyes. But she pushed forward, arms slicing through the water with desperate power. She wasn't thinking about dying. She wasn't thinking at all. She was just trying to reach them before the sea did. When she reached the rock, she yelled, "Take my hand." The man hesitated. She was just a kid, but one look at her eyes changed his mind. They were fierce, wild, unafraid. He let go of the rock, trusting a stranger with his life. The wave crashed again. For a second, all three disappeared beneath the foam. Then, movement. The girl surfaced, dragging the man and his boy with her, her thin arms trembling from exhaustion. Inch by inch, she pulled them toward the sand, her body scraping against hidden rocks. The man tried to help, but his leg twisted awkwardly, injured, useless. So she kept pulling, teeth clenched, ignoring the pain. When they finally reached the shore, she collapsed beside them, coughing up seawater. The boy clung to her, shaking uncontrollably. She wrapped her arm around him, whispering something that sounded like a prayer. The man lay beside them, eyes wide with disbelief. His name was Elliot Kane, the billionaire everyone in California seemed to know but no one truly understood. He built tech that changed lives, but right now he couldn't even save his own. The girl's hoodie was torn, revealing dark skin, bruised knees, and the hollow look of someone who hadn't slept in a bed in a long time. She didn't speak right away. Her lips were blue, her breathing shallow. Elliot reached out, wanting to thank her, but she looked at him, really looked, and something flickered across her face. Recognition. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I've seen you before," she said. Elliot frowned. The wind howled between them. "Where?" he asked. Her answer came out between shivers. "At the docks, 3 nights ago." He blinked, confused. He'd been at the docks then, yes, but how could this girl have been there too? The boy started crying again, breaking the silence. The girl held him close, murmuring, "You're safe now." Sirens echoed in the distance. Red and blue lights flashed faintly through the sheets of rain, getting closer. Elliot tried to sit up, wincing at the pain in his leg. "Who are you?" he asked again. She didn't answer. She just stared out at the violent waves, breathing hard, her expression unreadable. When the first rescue truck arrived, she flinched at the sound of the sirens. Medics jumped out, running toward them. But before they could reach her, she stumbled to her feet, grabbed her wet backpack, and started walking away. "Wait, stop!" Elliot called out. She didn't. The headlights caught her silhouette for a moment, small, fragile, but somehow unbroken, before she vanished into the storm's darkness. Later, when reporters surrounded Elliot in the hospital, all he could say was, "She saved us. That's all I know." But that wasn't all. Because somewhere deep down, a quiet unease began to grow, a feeling that this wasn't just a random act of courage. The next morning, the sky over Santa Monica looked like it was trying to pretend nothing happened. Blue, calm, peaceful. But the beach still wore the scars of the storm: broken boards, seaweed tangled around benches, and a single torn hoodie half buried in the sand. A paramedic had left it there, assuming it belonged to one of the rescued. It didn't. It belonged to the girl no one could find. The news called the incident a miracle rescue. Reporters said Elliot Kane and his young son Noah had been trapped after their yacht capsized in the storm. What no one could explain was the girl, the unknown teenager who appeared out of nowhere, saved them, and vanished before dawn. Security footage from the pier showed her for just 2 seconds, a hooded shadow sprinting into the waves. No name, no trace. For 2 days she didn't exist. But under the pier, among the cardboard shelters and seagull cries, she was very much alive. Araya pressed a damp towel against her shoulder, wincing from the salt burn. She'd been hiding there since the rescue, away from the cameras and the chaos. She couldn't risk being seen, not yet. Her small corner under the pier was her world. A pile of blankets, a cracked mirror, a few coins in a plastic cup, and a photograph, creased and fading, of her mother, smiling in an office she no longer worked in. She looked at that photo now, whispering, "I did it, Mama. I saved them." But her voice carried a weight that didn't sound like pride. It sounded like guilt, because Araya hadn't been on that beach by accident. She'd been watching the Kane family for days, following them, waiting. Every night, she'd sat near the docks, hood up, pretending to sketch or sleep, but her eyes never left that yacht. She knew something the world didn't, something that had driven her to dive into that ocean, knowing it could kill her. She pulled her hoodie tighter around her and listened to the world above. The footsteps of tourists, the laughter, the sound of a guitar somewhere in the distance. No one up there knew who she was. No one cared to. To them she was invisible, a runaway, a statistic. But soon they'd know her name. Not because she wanted fame, but because truth has a way of breaking through the noise. And once her truth came out, the world would never look at Elliot Kane the same way again. Because saving his life wasn't the only reason Araya had followed him. By the third morning, the internet had turned the story into a storm of its own. Every social platform was drowning in clips of the rescue, grainy footage, blurry photos, exaggerated claims. Hashtags like #AngelOfTheWaves and #HomelessHero trended across the country. People wanted to know who she was. Elliot Kane had watched the footage 100 times. He was sitting in his penthouse living room, his leg wrapped in bandages, his laptop open. Every replay brought back the same thing: her eyes. Sure. Intent. Not the eyes of someone who stumbled upon a tragedy. "Dad, she was brave," Noah said softly from the couch, holding a mug of cocoa. The boy's curls were still damp from his bath, his small body wrapped in a blanket. "She was," Elliot replied, though something in his voice sounded distant. "She saved us." But he couldn't shake a thought that had started haunting him since the hospital. Why was she there? His assistant, Lena Morales, walked in holding a tablet. "I think you should see this," she said. It was a security report. Someone had pulled footage from the marina. The girl had been seen 3 times in the week leading up to the storm, each time sitting near the dock where his yacht was moored. Always watching. She could have been casing the place, Lena suggested. Maybe planning to steal something. I mean, who knows what homeless people. "Stop," Elliot cut in, his voice sharp. He hated assumptions. Still, the evidence was odd. "Should we call the police?" Lena asked. Elliot hesitated. He wasn't sure what he wanted: justice, gratitude, or answers. Meanwhile, the world outside his glass walls had already decided for him. News outlets were calling her a miracle worker. Comment sections were at war, some calling her a hero, others calling her a fraud. Then came the video. A blurry clip uploaded by a fisherman showed Araya walking near the marina days before the storm. The caption read, "Same girl who saved Kane?" Looked like she was following him. The post went viral overnight. By sunrise, talk shows, podcasts, and online tabloids were tearing the story apart. Elliot's PR team called an emergency meeting. They wanted him to give a statement, something polished, controlled. But Elliot wasn't sure if he wanted to control this story. Something about that girl, the way she looked at him before walking away, it wasn't random. Later that night, after Noah had fallen asleep, Elliot stood by the window staring at the waves below. The city lights flickered across the water. His mind replayed a single image, her hand gripping his as the waves dragged them under. He remembered the strength in that small arm, the certainty in her eyes. She wasn't just saving him. She was fighting for something. "What were you doing there?" he whispered to himself. Outside, down near the beach, a woman holding a camera zoomed in on his balcony. She was a journalist from The Echo, an independent outlet known for uncovering things others buried. She had one lead, a tip about a teenage girl named Araya Bennett, last seen living under the Santa Monica Pier. And she intended to find her. Because if what she'd heard about Araya's mother was true, this wasn't a rescue story. It was a reckoning waiting to happen. The ocean had calmed, but under the pier the air still felt heavy. Araya sat cross-legged on the sand, sketching in a torn notebook. The drawing was of the boy, Noah, his small face tilted upward, smiling. She'd drawn him from memory. It was the only pure thing left in her mind after what happened that night. A few feet away, Ray, an older homeless man with a graying beard, was heating a can of soup over a tiny flame. He'd known Araya for months, called her Rookie because she was the youngest in their circle. "You're on the news again," Ray said, holding up his old phone. The video played grainy footage of the rescue. "They calling you the angel of the waves. You really did it, kid." Araya didn't look up. "They don't even know my name," she said. Ray chuckled. "Maybe that's a good thing." But Araya didn't smile. "No. They'll know. Sooner or later they'll know everything." Her voice carried a strange calm, almost like she'd already accepted whatever storm was coming next. She flipped to a new page and started drawing again. This time not Noah, but a tall man with kind eyes and a weary smile. "Elliot." Only this time his smile was crossed out with black pencil strokes. Ray frowned. "You angry at the rich guy?" She shook her head. "No. Just angry at what people like him can do without knowing." He didn't ask what she meant. Everyone under the pier had ghosts. That night, while the waves whispered against the sand, Araya took out a folded newspaper from her backpack. The headline was from years ago. "Tech company employee fired for fraud, CEO promises investigation." The woman in the article's photo was her mother. Araya's fingers tightened on the paper. She remembered that day clearly, the shouting, the police cars, the way her mom begged someone named Elliot to listen. He never did. When her mom died months later, homeless and hopeless, Araya had made a silent promise. One day he'll see me. Now he had. But not in the way she planned. As the tide rose, Araya tucked the photo and newspaper back into her bag. She didn't notice the journalist's shadow in the distance, camera lens glinting under the moonlight. Tomorrow the world would finally know her name. And when they did, the truth she'd been running from would tear everything apart. Because the story the world thought they knew was only half of it. By the fifth day the headlines started shifting. The story that once called her the angel who saved a billionaire, now had new words attached: mystery, suspicion, fraud. TV anchors smiled too brightly as they discussed her on morning shows. Was she really a hero, or something else? One asked, her tone dripping with curiosity. Clips of Araya pulling Elliot and Noah from the waves looped endlessly, each one dissected for meaning. Look at her expression, a guest analyst said. You can tell she knew them. Every replay twisted the truth a little more. Meanwhile, Araya stayed under the pier, listening to the world talk about her like she was already gone. The same world that never saw her when she begged for a sandwich now couldn't stop speaking her name. She hated it. Each night, the beach grew louder, news vans, flashing lights, camera crews combing the area for a glimpse of the homeless angel. She stopped lighting fires, stopped sketching, stopped sleeping. Because deep down she knew what was coming. Ray noticed first. You're jumpier than usual, he said one morning, sipping from a chipped mug. They'll find me soon, Araya replied. And that's bad. She looked at him with eyes older than 15. It's not the finding that scares me. It's what they'll say once they do. Ray studied her quietly. You didn't do nothing wrong, rookie. She didn't answer. The truth wasn't that simple. Later that day, she walked into a diner a few blocks away, one of the few places that didn't chase her out. She ordered a single pancake and sat by the window, pretending she could afford more. On the TV mounted above the counter, a reporter's voice caught her attention. Sources close to the Kane family confirm a private investigation is underway after new footage showed the girl, believed to be 15-year-old Araya Bennett, spying on Mr. Kane days before the accident. Araya froze. Her fork clattered. Her picture flashed on screen, the photo she'd used for a school ID years ago, back when she still had a home, still had a mother. Gasps filled the diner. That's her, someone whispered. That's the girl. A man pointed at the TV, then at her. You're that kid. Araya stood, heart racing. No, But it was too late. Phones lifted. Cameras pointed. Hey, you the hero? Or the stalker? Another voice shouted. Araya pushed past them and bolted outside, the sound of her name echoing behind her like a curse. She ran until her legs burned, until the streets blurred. When she finally reached the pier, she fell to her knees, gasping. Tears mixed with seawater as she whispered to herself, I just wanted him to know. But now the whole world did, and none of them knew the truth. That night, while she hid behind the wooden beams of the pier, a familiar voice broke through the wind. I know you can hear me, Araya. It was the journalist from the Echo, flashlight cutting through the dark. I'm not here to hurt you, she said softly. I just want to tell your side before everyone else destroys it. Araya stayed silent, her heart pounding. The reporter stepped closer. You weren't following him to steal, were you? Araya's eyes filled with tears. No. Then why? She hesitated, trembling. Because I overheard something. Something bad. The journalist leaned in. What did you hear? Araya swallowed hard. That someone was going to sink his yacht. And as soon as those words left her mouth, a shadow moved behind them, listening. The figure lurking in the dark was Victor Hale, one of Elliot Kane's senior executives, and the last man Araya ever wanted near her. He'd been watching her for days, ever since her name hit the news. Now, crouched in the shadows, his phone camera glowed faintly red. He caught every word. Someone was going to sink his yacht. That was all he needed. He backed away silently, sending the recording to an unknown contact. The text read, She's talking. We need to move fast. Meanwhile, the reporter gently guided Araya toward the light. Let's get out of here, she said. I'll buy you something to eat and you can tell me everything. For the first time in days, Araya felt a strange flicker of safety. At a small cafe nearby, she spoke in fragments, pieces of a puzzle she'd carried for too long. She told the journalist how she'd overheard two men in the diner days before the storm, whispering about the Kane deal and making it look like an accident. How she'd tried to warn security at the marina, but they laughed her off. "No one listens to a homeless kid," she said bitterly. The journalist nodded, recording every word. "And your mother? She worked for Kane, didn't she?" Araya looked up sharply. "You know about that?" "Just bits and pieces," the woman admitted. Her name came up in old records. Fired for fraud, but something about that story never added up. Araya pulled a crumpled newspaper from her bag, the same one she kept under the pier. "They said she stole from the company. But she didn't. Someone set her up." The journalist's eyes softened. "And you think it was one of his executives?" "I know it was," Araya whispered. "The same man who was on that yacht." Outside the cafe window, a black car idled. Victor sat inside, gripping the steering wheel. His jaw tightened as he watched the two of them talking. He couldn't afford for this story to live. Araya didn't know it yet, but by telling the truth, she had just stepped into a deeper storm. Hours later, when the journalist walked her back toward the pier, Araya felt the ocean breeze hit her face again. For a brief moment she smiled. "Thank you," she said softly, "for listening." The woman nodded. "People will know who you really are, Araya. I'll make sure of it." But as they reached the sand, the headlights of a black car flicked on in the distance. The journalist frowned. "You expecting someone?" Araya shook her head slowly. The engine revved. And before either of them could react, the car sped toward them, sand spraying, tires roaring. Araya screamed as the woman shoved her aside. The car missed her by inches but struck the journalist hard. The sound echoed across the beach, a single terrible thud. Araya crawled toward her, trembling. "No, no, please." The woman's phone, still recording, blinked beside her. And in the background, faintly visible in the distance, the license plate gleamed under the moonlight. Because when that footage hit the internet the next morning, it wouldn't just tell a story, it would expose a war. By sunrise, the beach was unrecognizable. Police tape flapped in the cold wind. Reporters crowded behind barricades. Drone cameras hovered above the sand like restless vultures. And somewhere in that chaos, a shaky cell phone video hit the internet. It opened with a girl's trembling voice, Araya's, saying someone was going to sink his yacht. Then came the headlights, the scream, the impact. The clip ended there. Within an hour, the footage was on every major platform. Hashtag Who is Araya trended first in Los Angeles, then across the country. At first, people thought it was staged, another viral hoax. But then the LAPD confirmed the journalist's death, and everything changed. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. "She's the real victim here." "No, she's hiding something. Look at how calm she was." "That Billionaire's people are covering this up, watch." Elliot Kane woke up to chaos. His phone buzzed nonstop. Reporters, board members, investors. He didn't even know the woman who died until his assistant whispered, "She was investigating your yacht accident, sir." Elliot frowned. Why would anyone investigate that? It was a storm. But the assistant hesitated. Apparently, someone claims it wasn't. That's when he saw the video. The girl's face flashed across his tablet. Small, scared, defiant. He recognized her instantly. The girl who'd pulled him and his son from the ocean. "Noah?" he whispered. He turned toward his son's room, where the boy sat watching the same video online. "Dad," Noah said quietly, "they're saying she's bad." Elliot crouched beside him. "Don't believe everything you read." But they said she was following you before the storm. Is that true? Elliot didn't know how to answer. He just stared at the screen as Araya's words replayed. Someone was going to sink his yacht. He whispered to himself, what if she's telling the truth? That thought, that single dangerous thought, changed everything. While police labeled the hit and run under investigation, Elliot made a call. Get me access to that security footage from the marina, he told his head of security. Every minute from that night. I want to see who ignored her warning. Across the city, Araya was on the move. She'd left the pier before dawn, clutching the journalist's phone. She didn't even know why she'd taken it. Maybe because it felt like proof that the woman hadn't died for nothing. The phone was locked, but one message on the screen glowed. Upload pending, the echo. Araya froze. If that video finished uploading, it could expose everything, including her. She ducked into an alley, shaking, her mind racing. Should she let it post? Or destroy it? Then she remembered the woman's promise. People will know who you really are. For the first time, she didn't want to hide. She sat on the cold pavement, pressed the upload button, and whispered, let the truth speak. An hour later, millions of strangers knew her name. But so did the man who wanted her gone. Victor Hale watched the video hit 1 million views, then calmly closed his laptop. His hands didn't shake. His pulse didn't rise. He'd been through worse. Delete everything connected to her, he said into his earpiece. Every file, every payroll record, every security log from the marina. The voice on the other end hesitated. That'll raise suspicion. Victor smiled thinly. Suspicion's better than evidence. He turned toward his window, watching the city lights flicker across the skyline. And find the girl. Quietly. Down by the beach, Araya moved through back alleys, trying to stay invisible. But invisibility was harder now. People recognized her face from the video. Some called out, others whispered. A few reached for their phones. She couldn't tell who wanted to help and who wanted to sell her story. At one corner, a group of kids her age huddled by a fire barrel. When they saw her, they froze. One boy said, "Yo, that's her. The girl who saved the billionaire." Araya's instinct was to run. But something in his voice stopped her. It wasn't hate. It was awe. "Can we take a picture?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then nodded. The kids smiled wide like she was some kind of hero. And for a second she almost believed it too. Then a shadow passed by, a black SUV rolling slow down the street. Her chest tightened. The same car from the beach. She darted down another alley, heart pounding. The vehicle turned after her. "Not again," she whispered. She ran, slipping on wet concrete, her breath ragged. The SUV accelerated. Araya spotted a service tunnel near the boardwalk and dove inside. The tunnel was narrow, damp, filled with graffiti. She pressed her back to the wall, trying to stay quiet. Footsteps echoed. Not one person, two. Then a voice. "You made this harder than it had to be, kid." Victor's tone was calm, almost fatherly. "You should have kept your mouth shut." Araya gripped the journalist's phone tighter, her only weapon now. "Why are you doing this?" she shouted from the darkness. "Because truth ruins everything," he said simply. He took one step closer. The tunnel light flickered. Araya's voice trembled. "My mom didn't steal anything. You did." Victor froze, just long enough for her to swing a metal pipe she'd grabbed from the ground. It struck the wall inches from his head, the sound echoing through the tunnel. He lunged forward, but she darted past him, sprinting toward the light at the other end. When she emerged onto the boardwalk, gasping, a small crowd had gathered, drawn by the chase. Cameras lifted. People started filming again. Araya didn't stop running, but she knew one thing for sure. This time she wasn't invisible. And somewhere above that chaos, Elliot Kane watched the live footage on his phone and realized his company wasn't what he thought it was. Elliot Kane sat in a soundproof boardroom high above downtown Los Angeles, surrounded by men who pretended not to be afraid of him. The table was glass, the air silent. "Gentlemen," he said evenly, "someone tried to kill me and my son. I want names." His CFO cleared his throat. "With respect, sir, the yacht incident was ruled an accident. I wins." Elliot slammed a file onto the table. "That's not an answer." The file contained the marina's security footage, all of it. Every minute leading up to the storm. He pointed to the timestamp. "There. A black SUV. My yacht engineer, Jason read, getting inside minutes before departure. Then he doesn't show up on board." "Sir, Jason's missing," said another executive. "Convenient," Elliot said coldly. He leaned back in his chair, studying their faces. "Whoever orchestrated this thought I'd never question it. But now there's a girl, a witness, and that changes everything." One of the men shifted uneasily. "You mean the one from the video?" "Yes, Pariah. She saved my life." "And now she's a liability," the CFO muttered. Elliot turned to him, his eyes like knives. "She's the only honest person in this room." Silence. Then the head of security cleared his throat. "Sir, with all due respect, she's a street kid. You can't trust someone like that." Elliot's jaw tightened. "Someone like what?" The man hesitated. "Someone without connections. Without reason to help." Elliot pushed back from the table. "That girl had more courage than all of you combined. While you sat in your offices, she was out there saving lives." He grabbed the remote and replayed the clip, the moment Araya screamed his warning. The boardroom filled with her trembling voice. Every man looked down. Elliot's tone softened. "If she was willing to risk her life to save me, the least I can do is find out why." He turned toward his assistant. "Set up a meeting with the LAPD chief. I want to see everything they've got, reports, interviews, evidence." As he left the boardroom, the CFO exchanged a nervous glance with another executive. "Should we tell him?" the man whispered. The CFO shook his head. "Not yet. If he finds out who funded the marina's expansion, we're finished." In another part of the city, Victor Hale was already cleaning up their trail. He deleted emails, erased accounts, transferred hush money into offshore funds. But one message slipped through the cracks, a text from the missing engineer. "She knows what we did. She's got proof." Victor's face hardened. "Then she dies next." Araya found shelter in an abandoned art studio 2 blocks from the pier, a cracked building that smelled of paint and rain. She curled up beneath a half-finished mural of a black woman reaching toward the sky, her fingers outstretched as if grasping for freedom. It reminded Araya of her mother. Her mother had painted too, small pieces on old cardboard, scenes of oceans and children smiling. Araya used to sit beside her, dipping fingers into cheap watercolor sets, believing they could make something beautiful out of nothing. But that was before everything fell apart. Now she was just a ghost hiding from headlines. She switched on the journalist's phone again, scrolling through files. Most were encrypted, but one folder wasn't. It contained screenshots of financial statements, names, offshore accounts, all connected to Kane Industries. Her heart sank. She didn't want to believe it. The man she'd saved, the man whose son had smiled at her, might be part of the same system that ruined her mother. Still, she couldn't look away. The last screenshot showed a payment authorized by Victor Hale, with a memo line that read, "Asset disposal." She whispered, "That's me." Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to cry. Not anymore. A knock echoed from downstairs. She froze. Another knock. Louder this time. Araya grabbed a metal rod and crept toward the stairwell. "Who's there?" she called. "Please don't hit me," came a small, shaky voice. It was a boy, maybe 12 or 13, holding a camera. His face was familiar. "You're Araya, right?" he said breathlessly. "I saw your video. I've been looking for you." She narrowed her eyes. "Why?" "My sister worked for that journalist," he said. "She told me to find you if anything happened." He handed her a small flash drive wrapped in tape. She said it's what they didn't want her to post. Araya stared at the drive, afraid to touch it. "What's on it?" "I don't know," the boy whispered. But she said if people saw it, they'd finally know the truth. Before she could respond, headlights cut through the window, a car stopping outside. The boy's eyes widened. "They followed me." Araya grabbed his hand. "Come on." They raced up the back stairwell, emerging onto the rooftop just as two men in black stepped out of the car. Wind whipped across the roof. Sirens wailed somewhere in the distance. The boy slipped. Araya pulled him up, her heart pounding. They sprinted across the ledge to another building, but there was a gap too wide to jump. Araya looked down. The alley below was deep, dark. She turned to the boy. "You trust me?" He nodded, terrified. "Then jump when I say." She waited, the men were getting closer. Then she ran full speed and leaped, grabbing the opposite ledge with one hand, her fingers burning. "Now!" she screamed. The boy jumped. She caught his wrist, pulling him up with everything she had. The men shouted from behind, too late to follow. Araya collapsed against the rooftop, gasping, clutching the flash drive. "Whatever's on this," she said, "we can't let them bury it." The boy nodded, trembling. "Then what do we do now?" Araya stared at the distant skyline, the lights of Kane Tower glowing in the dark. "We find the only person who might believe us," she said. "The man I saved." By morning, Elliot Kane would receive an anonymous message. A single line that would change everything. "Meet me where it all began." The message came through an encrypted number at 12:03 a.m. "Meet me where it all began." Elliot stared at it for a long moment, his pulse steady but his chest tight. He knew exactly what it meant. The pier. The storm. The night that changed everything. He'd been expecting something, some clue, some attempt at contact, but not this. Not from her. Across his office, the city glowed through floor-to-ceiling windows. Los Angeles slept, but his thoughts didn't. His assistant had left hours ago. His son, Noah, was safe under security watch. Still, Elliot couldn't shake the image of the girl, Araya, her trembling voice in the rain, her terrified eyes as she fought the current. He grabbed his coat and left through the service elevator. No driver, no guards. Just him and the message that wouldn't stop replaying in his mind. The pier was quiet when he arrived. Fog blanketed the ocean, and the wooden boards creaked under his steps. The faint smell of salt water hung in the air. A single figure stood at the edge, hood pulled low, hands stuffed into her pockets. "Araya," he said softly. She turned, eyes flashing with something between fear and defiance. "You came. You didn't give me much choice." She smirked faintly. "That's kind of the point." For a few seconds neither spoke. The only sound was the rhythm of waves slapping against the pilings below. "You shouldn't be out here," he said finally. "Whoever came after me might come after you too." "They already have," she whispered. "They're not stopping until I disappear." He stepped closer. "Tell me what you know." Araya hesitated, her breath visible in the cool air. Then she pulled the flash drive from her pocket and held it up. "This was given to me by a reporter's brother. It's got proof your company's been laundering money and setting people up to take the fall. My mom was one of them." Elliot frowned. Your mother? Danielle Boyd, she said, voice trembling. She worked in your finance division 3 years ago. She was fired, accused of stealing from the payroll system. But she didn't do it. Someone used her credentials to cover a transfer. He froze. The name hit him like a punch. Boyd, wait. I remember that case. The audit cleared management. You signed the termination, she interrupted. I've seen the documents. His throat went dry. He remembered. He'd signed dozens of employee terminations over the years, but that one, something about it had felt wrong even then. I didn't know, he said quietly. Araya laughed bitterly. That's the problem, isn't it? People like you never know until it's too late. The words hung heavy between them. He took a slow breath. Let me see the files. She plugged the drive into her phone, pulling up rows of coded transactions, shell companies, false records, each one stamped with the signature of his trusted COO, Victor Hale. Elliot's blood went cold. He looked up at her. You're saying Victor did this? She nodded. And he's trying to kill me to keep it buried. A noise cut through the fog, a car door slamming somewhere near the parking lot. Elliot's instincts flared. We need to go. But before they could move, 2 dark figures stepped into the mist, flashlights slicing through the air. Araya grabbed his arm. They found us. Run, Elliot whispered. They bolted down the pier, shoes pounding against wet planks. The fog was thick, so thick that the world shrank to a tunnel of pale gray and echoing footsteps. Behind them, voices shouted orders. Flashlights flickered closer. Araya clutched the flash drive like her life depended on it, because it did. Over here, she hissed, pulling Elliot toward the side steps. They ducked beneath the pier, splashing through shallow surf as beams of light swept above. The air reeked of seaweed and gasoline. The tide rose around their ankles. Elliot's heart thundered. Do they know who I am? They don't care, she said. To them you're just leverage. They crouched behind a support beam as footsteps clattered on the planks above. Araya peered out, her voice barely a whisper. We can make it to the lot if we go around the side. Elliot nodded. Let's move. They slipped along the shadows until the fog swallowed them again. But just as they reached the far end of the pier, headlights flared, another car blocking the exit. Go back, she shouted. They turned, but one of the men was already there, a gun glinting in the mist. Elliot froze. The man's voice was cold. Hand it over. Araya stepped in front of him, shaking but firm. You'll have to shoot me. The man smirked. That can be arranged. He raised the weapon, but before he could fire, tires screeched behind them. A black SUV skidded into view, doors flying open. LAPD. Drop it, an officer yelled. The man bolted, disappearing into the fog as his partner fired a warning shot. Chaos erupted, sirens, shouts, the smell of burnt rubber and salt water. Elliot pulled Araya behind a pillar until the scene quieted. When they finally emerged, Victor Hale was standing on the pier with police officers surrounding him. Face calm, voice collected. Mr. Kane, he said smoothly, thank God you're safe. We were tracking a possible threat to your life. Araya's eyes widened. That's him, she whispered. That's the man who ordered it. Victor turned toward her with a perfectly rehearsed frown. Ah, the young woman from the video. You're mistaken, Enough, Elliot snapped. You're coming with me. Now. The officers exchanged confused glances as Victor forced a smile. Of course, sir. But perhaps we should handle this privately. Elliot's tone was steel. Privately is how this started. He turned to the officers. Escort him to my office. I'll be there shortly. As Victor was led away, Araya leaned against the railing, shaking. "They'll spin this," she said softly. "They always do." Elliot met her eyes. "Not this time." He held out his hand. "You trusted me once. Do it again." After a long pause, she placed the flash drive in his palm. "I'm trusting you with everything," she said. "Don't make me regret it." He closed his fingers around it. "You have my word." The fog began to lift, revealing the first hints of sunrise over the Pacific. But for both of them, the real storm was just beginning. Inside that flash drive lay evidence not only of corporate corruption, but a recording that would shatter Elliot's entire world. Elliot sat alone in his office as the first streaks of sunrise bled through the blinds. The city stretched beneath him, wide, golden, and indifferent. He hadn't slept. Araya was in the conference room next door, wrapped in a company blanket, her head against the table. For the first time since meeting her, she looked like what she was, just a kid trying to survive a world that had chewed her up. He turned to his laptop. The flash drive glowed faintly in the port. One click and a folder appeared. Project Seastone. He opened it. Rows of spreadsheets, transaction records, and internal memos filled the screen. Millions laundered through shell nonprofits that didn't exist. Names he recognized, donors, investors, even campaign funds. But at the bottom was something else. A video file. He hesitated, then pressed play. The footage was grainy, time-stamped 18 months earlier. The camera was pointed at a boardroom table, his boardroom. At the center sat Victor Hale. Across from him, a woman in a navy suit spoke nervously. Elliot's breath caught. Danielle Boyd, Araya's mother. Her voice was shaking. "Victor, these numbers don't match. There's a $40,000 transfer under my credentials that I never approved. If we don't report this..." Victor leaned forward, smiling without warmth. "You're a bright woman, Danielle. Don't make a mistake you can't fix. I'm not signing off on fraud." He laughed softly. "You already did." Danielle's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Victor pushed a file toward her. "That's your signature. HR will see it first thing in the morning." The camera tilted slightly, catching the fear drain from her face. "This is wrong," she whispered. "Elliot wouldn't." Victor cut her off. "Elliot signs what I put in front of him. You know that." The screen flickered. Then static. Elliot leaned back, his hands trembling. He felt sick. His world, his empire, was built on lies he'd never seen. He turned toward the glass wall separating him from Araya. She was awake now, watching him silently. He gestured for her to come in. She walked in slowly, cautious. "You saw it?" He nodded, voice low. "I saw everything." A long silence stretched between them. "I didn't know," he finally said. "I trusted the wrong man." Araya's eyes glistened. "My mom begged them to listen. She thought if she kept quiet she could protect me. Instead, they ruined her." Elliot's jaw tightened. "Where is she now?" Pause. Then softly, "She died last winter. Pneumonia. We were sleeping behind a diner in Venice." He closed his eyes, the weight of her words hitting like a hammer. "I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't change anything." "I know," he said. "But maybe truth can." Outside, the city began to stir. The hum of morning traffic below, the distant sound of sirens, the world moving forward while two broken lives stood still. Elliot turned back to the screen. "This footage, if it gets out, it'll destroy Victor. But it'll also take me down with him." "Then maybe that's what's supposed to happen," Araya said quietly. He looked at her, this 15-year-old girl who'd lost everything but still stood tall. There was no anger in her voice now, just truth. For the first time, Elliot understood. Redemption wasn't about saving himself. It was about doing what her mother had died trying to do. He pressed upload. The video began syncing to every major news outlet in the country. As the upload reached 98%, a warning flashed on the screen: remote access detected. Someone else was inside the system. Elliot's screen glitched, lines of code flooding across the monitor. "Someone's trying to wipe the drive," he said sharply. Araya ran to his side. "Can you stop it?" "Maybe." He started typing furiously, fingers flying across the keyboard. But the hacker was fast. Each command countered instantly. Suddenly, a new window popped up. A live feed. Victor Hale stared back at them, calm as ever, his tie loosened, a glass of scotch in hand. "Good morning, Elliot," he said smoothly. "I see you found our little secret." Elliot's voice was cold. "You destroyed a woman's life. You almost got my son killed." Victor sipped his drink. "Collateral damage. You of all people should understand that." Araya stepped into view. "You're done, Victor. Everyone's about to see what you did." He chuckled. "You think uploading that file will save you? The server's already locked. By the time your little story hits the air, every copy will be gone, including yours." Elliot's jaw clenched. "Then I'll tell them myself." Victor leaned closer to the camera. "And confess to what? Signing off on a fraudulent termination? Approving false reports? You'll go down with me." Araya grabbed the laptop. "We already made backups," she lied. Victor's smirk faltered. "You're bluffing." "Try me." For the first time he hesitated. Then his expression hardened. "You're making a mistake, girl. People like you don't survive wars like this." "People like me don't have anything left to lose," she shot back. He stared at her for a long, cold moment, then the screen went black. Elliot leaned back, exhaling. "That was brave." "It was necessary," she said. "What do we do now?" He turned to her, eyes resolute. "We go public. Press conference. Today." Her eyes widened. "You'd risk everything?" He nodded. "Your mother deserved justice. And you deserve peace." Outside, police sirens echoed through the city as sunlight broke over the horizon. For the first time, Elliot felt the weight of his choices, and the power to change them. But far across town, Victor Hale was already on the move. A private jet fueled, his lawyers activated, his story ready. And deep in the code of Elliot's servers, a hidden file remained, one that no one had seen yet. A file labeled Noah. The next revelation wouldn't just expose corruption. It would tear open Elliot's family in a way he never imagined. The file sat at the bottom of the screen, small, almost harmless looking. Just one word. Noah. Elliot's pulse spiked. His fingers hovered over the mouse. "Don't," Araya whispered. "It could be another trap." He shook his head slowly. "No. He wanted me to find this." He double-clicked. The video opened to a dimly lit office. Victor Hale again, this time without the polish. His jacket was off, his sleeves rolled up. Beside him stood a woman Elliot hadn't seen in years. His ex-wife, Tessa. Elliot's stomach dropped. Tessa's voice trembled. "Victor, I can't do this. He'll find out." Victor chuckled. "Relax. The transfer's already processed. The account's under Noah's name. If Elliot ever suspects anything, it'll look like a trust fund deposit." Elliot froze. He could barely breathe. "What transfer?" he muttered. Araya frowned. "What are they talking about?" Victor leaned toward Tessa in the video. "The cover money for Project Seastone. You approved it through your charity account. He'll never know it came from his son's trust." Tessa looked away. "I did this for you. For us. You said it would all blow over." "It will," Victor said smoothly. Once Danielle's gone, no one will connect the dots. The screen went black. Elliot sat there, stunned, his own ex-wife, complicit in laundering the stolen funds through their child's name. He swallowed hard, voice breaking. She used our son to move the money. To hide it. Araya looked at him, her anger softening into disbelief. She worked with him? He nodded slowly, eyes hollow. I thought Victor betrayed me in business. But it's worse than that. He destroyed my family from the inside. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. Elliot pushed away from the desk, pacing toward the window. Below him, the city pulsed with life, oblivious to the chaos unraveling above. My boy, he whispered. They dragged him into this without him even knowing. Araya stepped closer, her voice low. You can't let them bury this. He turned sharply. And do what? Go on live TV and admit my family laundered millions through a child's account? That my wife betrayed me. Yes, she said simply. Because that's what my mom would have done. Her words hit hard, slicing through his panic like a knife through fog. He looked at her, this 15-year-old girl who'd lost everything but still stood for truth. She died trying to tell the truth, Araya said softly. Don't let that be for nothing. Elliot's throat tightened. You sound just like her. I know, Araya said, eyes glistening. And I wish I didn't have to. He turned back to the desk, hands trembling. Then we do this. All of it. Publicly. Araya nodded. I'll stand with you. He glanced at her, a flicker of pride breaking through his pain. You shouldn't have to. Neither should you, she said. Outside, thunder rolled faintly in the distance, a storm building over Los Angeles once more. As Elliot prepared to face the cameras, a phone buzzed on the desk, a text from an unknown number. If you go live, Noah doesn't make it home. The sound of that text seemed to echo forever. Elliot froze, eyes locked on the glowing screen. The message was simple, but its meaning cut deep. Noah was in danger. Araya stepped closer. What is it? He showed her the text. Her face went pale. They have your son. Elliot's voice broke. He's supposed to be with security. He dialed immediately, pacing the floor. The guard answered, breathless, panicked. Sir, someone intercepted the car leaving your estate. We're tracking them now. Elliot's world blurred. You lost my son? We're working with LAPD, sir. They're checking traffic cameras near Malibu. He ended the call shaking. Victor. Araya's tone hardened. He's cornered. He's desperate. Elliot turned toward her. He wants leverage. If I expose him, he'll hurt Noah. She hesitated, then said quietly, then we need to beat him to it. He frowned. What do you mean? She leaned in. We make the story go viral before he can silence you. If the world's watching, he can't touch your son without exposing himself. Elliot hesitated, torn between fear and reason. If I go live, I'm gambling with my child's life. And if you don't, Araya said, you'll lose more than that. You'll lose the truth. He stared at her for a long, painful moment. You really think this will save him? It saved me, she whispered. That night in the waves you said hold on. Now I'm saying it to you. Hold on, Elliot. Her words anchored him. Slowly he nodded. He walked back to his desk and opened his laptop again. The company's press broadcast system blinked on screen. One click and every major network would receive his feed. Araya stood beside him, trembling but resolute. Are you sure? She asked. He exhaled slowly. No. But we can't live in fear anymore. He hit go live. The camera light flickered red. Elliot looked straight into it, his voice steady but filled with fire. My name is Elliot Kane. And I've made mistakes, ones that cost lives. But what you're about to hear today isn't about wealth or power. It's about truth. He paused. And it's about a girl who risked everything to remind us what humanity looks like. Araya watched silently, tears in her eyes. Outside, somewhere across the city, a black van sped through the freeway toward the ocean. And in its back seat, Noah stirred awake. Before the broadcast could finish, a video call request flashed on Elliot's screen, from Victor Hale himself, holding Noah at gunpoint. The broadcast cut out worldwide. Millions stared at black screens, frozen mid-comment. Elliot's penthouse went dead quiet, no sound but the hum of electronics and his own heartbeat. Araya's hands shook. What just happened? He hit refresh. Nothing. The connection was gone. Trace the feed, he barked. Find where it originated. Araya's fingers flew over the keyboard. It's not local. The signal bounced through a private satellite. Last ping was near the coast. Elliot's stomach twisted. The ocean. She looked up, fear filling her eyes. He's on one of the abandoned oil platforms. Without hesitation, Elliot grabbed his car keys. We're going there. You can't go alone, Araya said. He's dangerous. He paused, meeting her gaze. You don't have to come. I already chose to, she said softly. Minutes later, they tore down the Pacific Coast Highway, wind and sirens screaming around them. The sun was setting, the sky bleeding red into the horizon, the same color as the sea that had once tried to take their lives. When they reached the marina, Elliot spotted the Coast Guard preparing a small rescue craft. Mr. Kane, one of the officers said, startled. We saw the broadcast. We're already deploying drones. No time, Elliot interrupted. He has my son. They sped across the churning waves, the city shrinking behind them. Then through the fog the platform appeared, a hulking skeleton of rust and steel, swaying above dark water. Araya clutched the side of the boat. That's it. As they drew closer, a faint sound reached them, crying, No. Elliot jumped onto the lower deck before the boat even stopped. He climbed the ladder, shouting his son's name. Dad. The voice came from above, muffled, desperate. He sprinted toward it, rounding a corner, and stopped. Victor stood there, soaked and bleeding, the gun still in his hand. Noah was tied to a railing behind him. Let him go, Elliot said, stepping forward slowly. Victor's voice was shaky now, his arrogance drowned in desperation. It wasn't supposed to end like this. Elliot took another step. Then don't end it. Victor's hand trembled. You destroyed me. Everything I built. You destroyed yourself, Elliot said quietly. Victor's eyes darted toward the waves. Maybe that's true. Then, before Elliot could move, Victor stumbled backward, over the rail. A splash. Silence. The waves swallowed him whole. Elliot rushed to Noah, cutting the ropes with trembling hands. The boy sobbed into his chest. Araya appeared moments later, soaked, shaking. Is it over? Elliot looked toward the sea, the spot where Victor disappeared. Yeah, he whispered. It's over. But as the Coast Guard lights flooded the deck, something strange happened. A small, waterproof drive washed up against the metal grating, marked with one word, Araya. When they opened it later, it revealed a final secret, one that would change everything they thought they knew about her mother's death, and who ordered it. The hospital room was dim and still. Machines hummed softly in the background, their steady beeps the only sign that Elliot and Noah were safe, alive. Araya sat in the corner, her clothes still salt-stained from the sea, her eyes fixed on the tiny drive in her hand. The word Araya gleamed faintly on its surface. She hadn't opened it yet. She wasn't sure she wanted to. Elliot stirred in the next bed, his arm wrapped protectively around his sleeping son. His face looked years older, lined with exhaustion and relief. He glanced at her. "You haven't looked at it?" She shook her head. "Not yet." He nodded slowly. "Maybe we should do it together." They waited until dawn, the first light slipping through the blinds like forgiveness. Araya plugged the drive into Elliot's laptop. The screen flickered and a single video file appeared. It was dated 4 years earlier. When she clicked play, her mother's face filled the screen. Talia Brooks, warm eyes, kind smile, the same fire that burned in her daughters. "Hey baby," she began softly, voice trembling. "If you're seeing this, it means I couldn't come home." Araya's breath hitched. Elliot reached out, his hand steadying hers. Talia continued. "I thought I could fix it. I thought if I exposed what they were doing, the turbines, the offshore deals, the fake safety reports, someone would listen. But I was wrong." She swallowed hard, glancing off screen. "They told me to keep quiet. Said they'd ruin me if I didn't. But then I found something else. Something about a transfer from Project Seastone to a private account in a child's name. I think it's his son." Elliot stiffened. Talia looked back into the camera, eyes filled with fear. "If anything happens to me, promise me you'll show this to the world. Promise you'll tell my daughter I tried." Then, a noise behind her. She turned suddenly, startled. The video shook, then cut out. Araya stared at the screen, tears streaming silently down her face. "That's it," she whispered. "That's all she left?" Elliot closed the laptop slowly. "That's enough." She looked at him, lost. "Enough for what?" "For the truth," he said. "To clear her name. To finish what she started." Araya wiped her face with her sleeve. "She died trying to protect your family. You didn't even know her." Elliot's eyes softened. "I do now. And I owe her everything." She smiled faintly. "You don't owe me anything." He shook his head. "You're wrong. You saved my son, my company, my soul. That's a debt I'll never repay." Silence filled the room again, not heavy but peaceful. Then Elliot said quietly, "There's one more thing we have to do." Araya frowned. "What's that?" He turned the laptop around. "We release it. To everyone." Her heart jumped. "You mean?" He nodded. "Your mom's video. Her truth. Her voice. The world deserves to hear it." Araya hesitated, her breath trembling. Then she nodded. "Let's do it." Together they uploaded the file, not to the news, not to the press, but to Araya's own social account, the same one she'd used years ago before losing everything. The caption was simple: "My mother tried to save them. They silenced her. But not anymore." Within hours, the video spread like wildfire. Millions watched, cried, and shared her mother's voice, the confession of a woman the world had forgotten, now echoing louder than ever. By sunset, #Justice for Talia was trending globally. And for the first time in years, Araya felt something she hadn't felt since her mother's death: peace. That night, a knock echoed at their door. When Araya opened it, a woman in a federal badge stood there and said, "We need to talk about your mother's last report." She wasn't the only one. 3 weeks later, the country was still reeling. Victor Hale's body was never recovered, though his crimes filled every headline. Multiple arrests followed: board members, accountants, even officials who had turned a blind eye. Elliot's company stock had crashed, but for once he didn't care. He'd started a new fund, one named after two people who'd changed his life: the Talia and Araya Foundation for Coastal Justice. They focused on rebuilding communities, protecting coastlines, and funding education for underprivileged youth, especially girls. On the day of the launch, Elliot stood on a small stage overlooking the Pacific, the same ocean that had nearly taken everything from him. Araya stood beside him, wearing a simple white dress, her curls blowing in the breeze. He looked at her proudly. "You ready?" She nodded. "Yeah. For once I think I am." The crowd hushed as Elliot began to speak. "Sometimes," he said, "the people the world ignores are the ones who change it the most. A girl who had nothing gave me everything: courage, truth, and a second chance." He paused, his voice thick. "This foundation isn't about me. It's about her. And her mother. And every voice that was ever silenced by fear." Applause filled the air. Araya stepped up to the microphone next. She looked out over the waves, eyes glistening. "My mom used to tell me the ocean remembers," she said softly. "That no matter how far the waves travel, they always come back home." I think she was right. She smiled faintly. Because today her voice came back home. The crowd rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, crying. Elliot reached out, taking her hand. Noah ran up behind them, laughing, and the three of them stood together, silhouetted against the golden sun. But as the applause faded, the woman with the federal badge lingered near the back, watching quietly. She spoke into her earpiece. "She doesn't know yet. There's another file, one her mother never got to send." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "And this one changes everything." The ocean was calm that morning, its waves soft against the sand. Araya sat alone on the edge of the pier, her bare feet dangling above the water. She finally had a place to sleep, food to eat, and people who saw her, not as a runaway but as a survivor. For the first time in years she didn't wake up afraid. Until she heard the footsteps. "Miss Brooks?" a voice called behind her. Araya turned to see the same woman from the beach, short hair, dark suit, sharp eyes. The federal badge glinted in the sunlight. Araya straightened, wary. "You're from the FBI, right?" The woman nodded. "Agent Marin Cole. We spoke briefly after the conference. May I sit?" Araya hesitated, then nodded. Marin sat beside her, setting a small folder between them. "Your mother's file reopened 3 federal cases. What she uncovered was bigger than we thought." Araya's fingers tightened around the railing. "I thought everything came out. The video." "The video helped," Marin interrupted. "But it wasn't the full story. Talia Brooks had a second drive. One she encrypted and sent to a P.O. box under a false name." Araya blinked. "Then why didn't anyone find it?" "Because," Marin said quietly, "the box was registered under a different person. Someone who died 3 years ago." She slid the folder toward her. Araya opened it slowly. Inside were black and white photos. Her mother, much younger, holding a baby. The handwriting beneath said, "Project Seastone, subject, case child number 4. Her stomach dropped. "What is this?" Marin's tone softened. "We think your mother discovered something about a child used in the original offshore project. A genetic testing program disguised as environmental research. The drive she hid may explain everything." Araya stared at the photo. "You're saying my mom found something illegal?" Marin met her eyes. "No, Araya. I'm saying she found something personal. Something that made her run." The girl's pulse quickened. "Personal?" "Yes. But we need your help to decode the file. You're the only one with her access signature. It's biometric, tied to family DNA." Araya's voice shook. "You mean you need my blood?" Marin nodded. "Just a small sample. But you should know, if we open this, it may change what you believe about your mother and about yourself." Araya looked out over the sea, heart pounding. She wanted answers. She wanted peace. But part of her feared what peace might cost. When she turned back to respond, Marin Cole was gone, but the folder remained. And inside it, one page had been circled in red ink. Confidential. Subject connected to Elliot Kane. That night, Araya couldn't sleep. She kept staring at the folder, the circled line repeating in her head. Connected to Elliot Kane. She wanted to dismiss it, maybe it was a coincidence. But deep down, something twisted in her gut told her it wasn't. The next morning, she met Elliot at the foundation office downtown. The place buzzed with volunteers and camera crews preparing for a new charity campaign. Elliot smiled when he saw her. "You look tired. Everything okay?" Araya forced a smile. "Yeah. Just thinking." He nodded. "I know that look. The world's heavy right now. But we'll get through it." She almost told him about the agent, the file, the photo. But she didn't. Not yet. Instead, she followed him into his office, where sunlight poured across the walls lined with pictures of his late wife and Noah as a baby. Her gaze froze on one of them, a photo of his wife at a hospital holding a newborn. The date at the bottom read the same year Araya was born. Her chest tightened. "Elliot, how old is Noah?" 10, he said. "Why?" She tried to sound casual. "And your wife, when did she pass?" 11 years ago, he said, his expression dimming. "Childbirth complications." Araya swallowed hard. The timeline didn't add up, unless the photo she'd seen in the file meant something else entirely. Later that afternoon, she slipped into the foundation storage room and pulled out the folder again. The photo of her mother holding that infant, the one labeled case child number 4, haunted her. She compared it side by side with Elliot's photo. The same blanket. The same hospital window. Her heart stopped. The babies looked nearly identical. Then she noticed it, a faint birthmark under the baby's left ear. The same small mark she had. She dropped the papers, hands trembling. "No," she whispered. "That's not possible." At that exact moment her phone buzzed. A known number. She hesitated, then answered. A calm voice spoke. "Araya, this is Agent Cole. We've decrypted part of the file. You need to come in, now. Before someone else gets to it first." Araya's pulse raced. "What do you mean, someone else?" But the line had already gone dead. She turned toward the glass wall of Elliot's office, just in time to see him standing there, watching her through the reflection. And his face wasn't smiling anymore. Elliot's voice came through the intercom, low and sharp. "Araya, we need to talk. Right now." Araya's heartbeat thundered in her ears as she stepped into Elliot's office. The glass door slid shut behind her, sealing the room in heavy silence. Elliot stood by the window, his reflection framed by the city skyline. He didn't look angry, just tired. "You've been looking into your mother's past," he said quietly. "Who told you?" Araya's throat tightened. "You already knew, didn't you?" He turned slowly, his expression unreadable. "You shouldn't have seen that file." "So it's true," she whispered. "The baby in that photo." Elliot's jaw clenched. "Yes." The single word hit her like a storm. She took a step back. "What do you mean, yes? Are you saying I'm not who you think you are?" he said softly. "Your mother wasn't just exposing corruption, Araya. She was protecting something. Protecting you." Her knees weakened. "Protecting me? From what?" Elliot sighed and walked to his desk, pulling out a sealed envelope. He slid it toward her. Inside was a DNA report, dated 12 years ago. Araya unfolded it with shaking hands. Her eyes froze on the words. Subject match, Elliot Kane, 99.98%. Her voice cracked. You're my father?" He looked down. "I didn't know. Not until after your mother's death. She never told me. When I found out, I tried to bring you home, but someone higher up blocked it." They said your file was sealed under a classified program. Araya's mind spun. Program? What are you talking about? Project Seastone, he said. It wasn't just about coastal development. It was a cover for experimental treatments, genetic resilience trials. Your mother was a scientist on that team. She volunteered for one of the tests while she was pregnant. She backed away. No. No, that's insane. It saved your life, he said gently. But when she realized the government wanted to use her research for military gain, she tried to destroy it. That's why they silenced her. Araya's eyes filled with tears. And you, what did you do? I funded the project, he whispered, without knowing what it truly was. When I found out, it was too late. A deep silence followed. Araya stared at him, her voice trembling. So you helped build the thing that killed my mother and made me what I am. Elliot didn't deny it. I've spent every day since trying to fix it, he said. But there are still people who want that data. People who will come for you now that the file's open. Araya shook her head in disbelief. You lied to me. I was trying to keep you safe. By hiding the truth? By keeping you alive. Before she could respond, the intercom buzzed. Elliot pressed the button. A voice crackled through, deep, urgent, unfamiliar. Sir, there's a breach on level 2. We've got unmarked vehicles approaching the garage. Elliot's face went pale. They found us. He grabbed Araya's hand. If you want to live, you'll have to trust me, just one more time. Elliot led her through a restricted corridor beneath the foundation, a place Araya never knew existed. The walls were lined with reinforced glass and coated panels. Where are we going? She asked breathlessly. To the archive vault, he said. It's where your mother stored the original drive. They reached a steel door. Elliot pressed his hand against a biometric pad, and the lock clicked open. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed over rows of old data servers and sealed containers labeled with project codes. Araya stepped closer to one marked Seastone, Batch Alpha. She traced the faded letters. This is where it started. Elliot nodded. Your mother was part of a small team that designed a serum to help the human body adapt to extreme environments, oceanic pressure, radiation, heat. But it had a side effect. It enhanced cellular regeneration. Araya frowned. So she created a cure, and they wanted to weaponize it? Exactly, Elliot said. They believed it could make soldiers who never got sick, who healed faster than normal. She tried to stop it, but when she refused to hand over the formula, they turned against her. He opened one of the containers, revealing glass vials glowing faintly blue. This is what she died protecting. Araya stared at the light. It pulsed softly, almost alive. What happens if they find this? She asked. They'll try to reproduce it, Elliot said. And they'll need your DNA to complete it. Araya's voice dropped. That's why Agent Cole wants me. Elliot hesitated. What did you say? She said she was with the FBI. She said she needed my blood to unlock the file. Elliot's expression hardened. Araya. Marin Cole died 3 years ago. The room fell silent. What? He pulled up a database record. There it was, Marin Cole, deceased 2022. Araya's chest went cold. Then who have I been talking to? Before he could answer, the lights flickered, then went dark. Footsteps echoed in the hall. Elliot grabbed her arm. They're here. A beam of light cut through the darkness, the silhouette of a woman in a black tactical suit stepping into the room. Araya froze. It was the same face she saw on the beach. Only now, the badge on her chest read something else entirely. Raven Division. The woman smirked. Sorry, sweetheart. But your mother's secret dies tonight. The air in the vault turned electric. The red emergency light pulsed across the steel walls, bathing everything in crimson. Elliot stepped in front of Araya. "Raven Division," he said sharply. "You have no jurisdiction here." The woman's smirk deepened. "Oh, Elliot, you still think this is about law?" She raised her weapon. "We're way past that." Araya's mind raced. Her pulse pounded in her ears. Every muscle screamed run. The woman motioned toward her. "Hand her over and maybe I let you walk out breathing." Elliot's voice was steel. "You'll have to go through me first." "Gladly." The moment her finger twitched on the trigger, Elliot slammed his hand on the emergency lever beside the door. The floor split open beneath them and a narrow maintenance shaft revealed itself. "Go," he shouted. Araya didn't hesitate. She dove into the shaft as bullets ricocheted off the metal walls. Elliot followed, sealing the hatch above them. They tumbled down a dark chute, landing hard on a grated platform. Dust filled the air. Above them, the gunfire faded into muffled echoes. Araya coughed, struggling to catch her breath. "Who are they?" "Private contractors," Elliot panted. "Funded by the same people who started Project Seastone. They don't want the formula, they want you." "Why me?" He hesitated. "Because you survived the serum. You're proof it worked." Her stomach dropped. "So what am I now, some kind of experiment?" "No," he looked at her fiercely. "You're the only success story. And that's exactly why they'll never stop chasing you." A distant rumble shook the platform, the sound of boots hitting metal above. Elliot looked up. "They've got our trail. We need to move." He led her down a dim corridor lined with rusted pipes and warning labels. The air was thick with the scent of salt and machine oil. They reached an elevator door. Elliot pried it open manually, revealing an old shaft with ladder rungs. "Down there?" Araya asked, peering into the darkness. "It connects to the old subway tunnels. They were sealed off years ago." "And what if it's a dead end?" He gave her a tired half-smile. "Then we make our own way out." They climbed down, each step echoing in the hollow shaft. Halfway down, Araya froze. A faint beam of light flickered below. Voices followed. "She's here. Infrared shows 2 heat signatures." Araya looked up in terror. "They're below us too." Elliot cursed under his breath. "They've boxed us in." For a second it felt like the world was closing in. No way up, no way down. Then, with desperate resolve, Elliot said, "There's one more way." He kicked open a side maintenance hatch, grabbed Araya's hand, and they crawled through as the tunnel behind them erupted with gunfire. They stumbled into an abandoned control room, cracked monitors, dust, and a faint glow of power still running through the old circuits. Araya leaned against the wall, panting. "We can't keep running." Elliot looked at her, not as a billionaire but as a father filled with regret. "We don't have to run forever. We just need to reach the truth first." The monitors flickered to life on their own, and a familiar voice echoed through the static. "Araya, if you're hearing this, it means I didn't make it. And they're coming for you again." It was her mother's voice. Araya froze. The voice on the speakers was warm, soft, trembling with urgency. "Mama?" she whispered. The static cleared and the recording continued. "If you're hearing this, my little one, it means I couldn't protect you the way I hoped. They've turned my research into something dangerous. But you, Araya, you're the key to stopping them." Elliot stood still, eyes wide. "She left a message, down here?" The voice continued. "The formula wasn't just medicine. It bonded with your DNA, made you resilient, stronger than they ever intended. But that power has a cost. They'll want to study you, replicate you. Don't let them." Araya's tears blurred her vision. "Find the black drive labeled Seastone Final. It holds everything, the formula, the evidence, the names of everyone involved. If you give it to the wrong person, they'll use it to control the world. Trust only the one who carries the mark of the sea glass. The message ended abruptly. Elliot looked confused. The mark of the sea glass? Araya wiped her tears. I've seen that before. Where? In her locket, Araya whispered. There was a piece of blue glass in it. I still have it. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the cracked pendant, the same one she'd worn since childhood. Elliot gently took it from her hands. Then that's what they're after. Before he could say more, the control room door exploded inward. Armed figures in tactical suits stormed in, laser sights cutting through the dark. Hands where I can see them, one shouted. Elliot raised his hands slowly. Listen. Target confirmed, said another. The girl stays alive. Araya's eyes darted around the room, nowhere to run. Then something unexpected happened. The air grew thick. A faint hum filled her ears, followed by a burning sensation spreading through her arms. Elliot's gaze snapped to her. Araya, what's happening to you? Her skin glowed faintly blue, the same color as the vials in the lab. Her body trembled, but she didn't feel pain, only raw, surging energy. I don't know, she gasped. The soldiers hesitated, clearly unnerved. One fired a warning shot. The bullet grazed her arm and sealed its fate. Before she could comprehend it, the wound closed in seconds. The soldiers stared in disbelief. She's activating. Elliot whispered, half in awe, half in horror. Your mother was right. Araya met his eyes. I'm not running anymore. As the soldiers charged, Araya's pulse flared with light, and the entire tunnel exploded in a blinding surge of blue energy. The world was quiet. Too quiet. Araya opened her eyes to darkness, smoke, dust, the smell of burning metal. A faint blue glow shimmered across her hands. Bodies lay scattered across the tunnel floor, some soldiers groaning, others motionless. The walls were scorched black as if lightning had ripped through stone. Her pulse thudded in her ears. She looked down at herself, not a single wound, not even a bruise. Elliot's voice broke the silence. Araya. He was half buried under a pile of debris, his leg pinned. She rushed to him, adrenaline surging. I'm here. Hold on. He grimaced. You saved us. Again. She shook her head. No, she looked around horrified. I did this. He coughed weakly, but his eyes were calm. You didn't choose it. It's the serum, it reacts to fear, to survival. Her breath trembled. So I'm a weapon now? No, he grabbed her hand. You're proof of what they couldn't control, humanity. That's why they feared your mother. The name hit her like a knife. My mom, her voice cracked. She tried to stop all this. Elliot nodded slowly. She was one of the first scientists on Project Seastone. She believed the serum could heal, regenerate cells, end disease. But when she found out they were using it for military enhancement, she tried to expose them. Araya's hands shook, and they silenced her. They framed her, he said quietly, and fired her through my company's board. I never knew. By the time I found out, it was too late. The air between them thickened with regret. Araya lowered her head, tears cutting paths through the dust on her cheeks. She died trying to protect me, and I thought she'd just given up. Elliot reached into his jacket and handed her a small, charred flash drive. This was in the control room, labeled Seastone Final. She wanted you to have it. Araya held it close, her hands trembling. The tunnel groaned above them, part of the ceiling starting to collapse. Elliot looked up. Go. You have to finish what she started. No. I'm not leaving you. You don't have a choice, he said, forcing a weak smile. If you stay, none of this matters. Tears blurred her sight as she crawled backward. I'll come back for you. He nodded faintly. I know. She turned and ran, the tunnel shaking behind her, until a deafening crash sealed him from view. Silence returned, broken only by her ragged breathing. As Araya staggered into the next chamber, a single light flickered on, revealing a holographic projection of her mother waiting for her. The hologram flickered. A soft, familiar face formed from light and static. Araya froze, whispering, "Mom?" Her mother smiled faintly. "If you're here, then you've survived, and that means my work wasn't in vain." Araya's throat tightened. "I don't understand any of this." The hologram stepped closer, her tone gentle but firm. "You were born with a rare cellular mutation. When they found out, they wanted to use it to test the serum's limits. I agreed to help only if they stopped using children. They lied. So I hid the truth in you." Araya's breath caught. "In me?" "The final version of Seastone, the cure, the one that worked, isn't on that drive. It's in your bloodstream." Araya's knees nearly buckled. "So all this time, they've been hunting me because I'm the cure?" "Yes." Her mother's voice softened. "But the cure has a choice, to heal or to destroy. It mirrors the heart of the one who carries it. That's why I believed in you, my love." The chamber lights pulsed brighter as if responding to the hologram's energy. Araya took a shaky step forward. "If I'm the cure, can I fix what they broke? Maybe not all at once. But you can stop them. Expose them. Show the world what they did." Araya wiped her tears, her expression hardening. "Then I'll finish your fight." Her mother's image smiled, pride shining through the fading light. "Then remember one thing, power doesn't define who you are. What you choose to do with it does." The hologram flickered, then vanished into darkness. For a long moment, Araya stood there, her heart pounding in rhythm with the faint hum of the underground. She looked at the flash drive in her hand, then toward the tunnel that led upward. She could hear distant sirens above. Maybe rescue, maybe the enemy. Either way, she knew what she had to do. She placed the drive into her locket beside the shard of sea glass, snapped it shut, and whispered, "We're not done yet, Mama." As she climbed toward the surface, a single phrase echoed from a hidden speaker. "Project Seastone, reactivation sequence confirmed." The system was waking up again. Araya emerged from the sewer tunnel into the cool, salt-stung air of Santa Monica. The storm had passed, but the sky still carried its bruises, gray clouds smeared with orange dawn. Ahead, the beach was crawling with flashing lights, police, rescue trucks, and news drones hovering like silent vultures. Every channel in America was live. Araya's face, dirty and blood-streaked, appeared on a dozen floating screens. The caption read, "Homeless girl or experiment gone wrong?" She clenched her fists. They still don't see it. Then she spotted a familiar shape, Elliot's private satellite van, its antenna pointed skyward. She limped toward it, gripping the flash drive like her heartbeat. Inside, Elliot's head of communications, a young woman named Tessa, froze when Araya appeared. "Oh my God, you're alive." "Where's Elliot?" Araya asked. Tessa's face fell. He didn't make it out." Araya's chest caved inward, just for a second. But she straightened. "Then help me finish what he started." Tessa hesitated. "You can't just go on air. You'll expose yourself." Araya looked straight at the camera lens. "Good." Within minutes, every broadcast on the West Coast cut to her live feed. The girl America once called the homeless angel now stood center stage, broken, fearless, her hoodie still torn from the storm. "My name is Araya Kane," she began. And what you were told about me, about my mother, was a lie. The words hit like thunder. She uploaded the files, exposing everything. Project Seastone. The genetic experiments. The cover-ups. The deaths. Images flashed across screens, documents, hidden memos, recordings of secret meetings. And finally, a photo of Elliot standing beside her mother, smiling years before it all began. He tried to make it right, Araya said, voice trembling. And now it's our turn. The feed cut for a second, someone trying to jam the signal. Tessa's fingers flew across the controls. We're losing uplink. Araya pressed her hand against the power conduit. A faint blue surge rippled through the cables, the same glow as before. The system stabilized. She exhaled shakily. Not today. Millions watched as her mother's last message, the holographic recording, appeared on screen saying, "Power doesn't define who you are. What you choose to do with it does." The broadcast ended with one simple image, Araya standing at the shoreline, the waves glowing faintly beneath her feet. As sirens wailed in the distance, Araya turned toward the rising sun, whispering, "Let them come." Weeks later, the world had changed. Project Seastone was exposed. Executives were arrested. And Elliot's foundation, renamed the Araya Initiative, was funding shelters for displaced youth across the country. But Araya wanted none of the cameras. She walked barefoot along the same stretch of beach where it all began. The waves calm now, the sky open and gold. People recognized her sometimes, but they didn't call her homeless girl anymore. They just smiled, like they finally saw her. She stopped near the pier, where she'd once slept under cardboard, and whispered to the ocean. From her pocket she pulled out the locket. Inside, the sea glass shard and the now empty flash drive. "I did it, Mama," she murmured. "They know." A light breeze swept her hair back. For a moment she swore she could hear her mother's voice in the wind, soft, proud. A small boy ran past her, chasing a kite. His laughter echoed across the shore, innocent, unscarred. Araya smiled. That's what it was all for. She turned toward the water one last time. In the distance, the tide shimmered faintly blue, not dangerous, just alive, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. Maybe that was all Seastone ever meant to be. Not a weapon, but a reminder that even in ruin, life adapts, survives, and starts again. Araya took a deep breath, closing her eyes as the sun warmed her face. For the first time in forever, she wasn't running. She wasn't invisible. She was seen. And somewhere in that silence between waves, she felt her mother's voice again. "You were never lost, my love. You were just finding your way home." You see, sometimes the ones the world forgets are the ones who save it. And when truth finally rises, like the tide, no wave can wash it away. The stories like this move you, stay with us. Because somewhere out there, another Araya is waiting to be seen.